Good afternoon and welcome to today's meeting with Emma Plank here on today's show. Today we get the pleasure to interview and speak with Emma Plank. Emma Plank was an influential woman who has done great work to advocate for children in her work and education. Thank you for joining us today, Emma, and welcome to our show. Can you start with telling us a little bit about yourself?
Hi, thank you so much for having me. Good afternoon. Of course. So, I was born on November 11th, 1905, in Vienna, Austria. I was born to Jewish parents Emil Spira, a civil servant, and Doris Langbian, a seamstress. My full name is actually Emma Caroline Spira, but I often use my childhood nickname, Nushi. I went by Nushi until I was married to my husband in 1932, Robert Plank. I had a younger brother, Leopold Spira, a socialist, activist, and writer who volunteered in the International Brigade during the Spanish Civil War.
What an interesting family and child history. Could you tell us more about your life in Europe and explain your experience you had in Vienna and what it was like living through both of the world wars?
It would be my pleasure. My life was impacted greatly by both world wars. I was living in Vienna, where the population was decreased greatly by World War I. There was a shortage in food and clothes, which caused a toll on many families.
Wow, that sounds like it was really hard on your family, and it was a hard time your family and you had to go through. How did that experience lead you to make a decision to be an educator?
That's a great question. Way back in 1918, my parents sent me to a summer camp, and that experience as a 13-year-old was a milestone in my development. When I was just 14 years old, my parents thought the best thing for me would be to go to Sweden. So was a neutral country and could provide better for me. When I returned home, I felt the schools here were just so empty. The generation before us got us into this huge mess, and as a younger generation, it was our job to lead us out of it. When I came back from Sweden, I had saw what a country without war was like. At that point, I was determined that I wanted to be an educator. The next summer, I decided to co lead a summer camp for 40 children in a castle ruin in the Dolomites, beginning my work with children.
That's amazing, Emma. You sound like you know what you want to do at such a young age. My next question is, after co-leading the summer camp, what was your role at the Montessori school led by Lily Peller? And how did that role and what was that purpose? And how were you able to help children?
Another great question. So, the Montessori school had an apprenticeship program consisting of 5 girls, ages 16 to 18. I was selected as one of those girls and lived there at the school where I worked. They were full of hopes for the young republic. Since they had limited funding, we had to serve what they called a year of practice. This was a nice way to put kitchen work in exchange for training as a teacher. This is where I wrote my preface to Peller's papers that were that we were devoted to a purpose. That purpose was to provide services to underprivileged children. The dedication of the work done by the Peace Corps workers and I aided in providing a hope that what we did really mattered and should help build a better world.
Emma, I think that is great. And I think it is great how you dedicated the work to provide that better world for future generations. And I think that is very important. With more of your education, how did that expand after your work of the Montessori school? And how did people like Lily Peller help you expand your education?
I really enjoyed working at the Vienna Montessori School and thought this school was a great site for training purposes for educators and social workers all over Europe. The school provided a course that students could enroll for 2 years, which consisted of a 4-month study with Montessori herself. I enrolled in Montessori courses in 1924 and then again in 1927. For those courses, I was able to earn a diploma for the International Montessori Training Program, a certificate from the Psychoanalytic Institute, and another certificate from the Austrian Federal Teachers College. Once I left the Montessori school, I soon immigrated to the United States. In the United States, I was offered during my education. In the United States, I studied child development at Mills College in San Francisco, where I then earned a master's degree.
That sounds amazing. I'm so glad that you got that opportunity to immigrate to the United States. The United States provides a lot of opportunities, including education, and that is amazing. How have your influences, like the work done by Lily Peller, impacted your vision in education? And what would you say your further education advanced from those times?
Well, first off, thank you very much. Some other influences that impacted my vision in education were these biweekly seminars that I attended. The Montessori teachers, we all attended seminars with Anne Fred herself, in which psychoanalysis and its meaning for educators and education opened up for us. We didn't train so much as child therapists, but as psychoanalytically oriented teachers. Then advocated training for teachers at the Vienna Psychoanalytic Institute from 1935 all the way up to 1938. This was one of my best and favorite encounters I had in Vienna.
That does sound like a great encounter in Vienna. Going back to a little further back, just in 1938, what was the Anschluss and how was it affected to you? Just if you could explain briefly on that for a little bit, Emma, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Um, so the Anschluss, it was 3 days of terror in all the way back in March of 1938 in when Germany annexed Austria into the Third Reich. So, in order to survive, me and my husband made the decision that we had to get out of there. We had to escape. Um, we had to go through difficult and frightening processes trying to get out. Um, we had to acquire the necessary immigration papers, including affidavits and sponsorship letters. The British immigration officials accepted them, but only if we could prove our ultimate destination was the United States. Once we did, we then left for our new life here in America.
That's amazing, Emma. It looks like we have to cut this interview short, but it was very nice to meet you this afternoon, and I'm glad that you got to be on this show. It was great to get to know you and your life in Europe. You are a wonderful person, and I thank you for all the work you have done for our children and future generations. Is there anything else you'd like to add before we end?
Thank you so much for having me today and for interviewing me and get to know my life in Europe. I did really enjoy these few minutes we had to look back at my life in Europe and all the work I've done for children. If I had to end this interview on one note, it would be to enrich the thinking of those who try, to give stability to children in this troubled world.
Thank you again, Emma. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.